Hi everybody, I'm Deanna O'Connor and as Christina said, I'm the founder of the Speak Up Club, which was originally founded to create a really safe environment to train women in public speaking and confidence skills. But before I did that, I was a magazine editor, and I suppose my background in magazines is that I'm a bit of an old dinosaur that was in them since before social media and digital was really a thing, and then kind of grew up with digital coming in and became not just a magazine editor in my last role, but also a website editor. And so I've really seen how digital has become so important and how social media actually became so important. So I went into a job as a writer and came out of it as a social media and digital expert, and because I had to be, and I had to wear that hat as well. So no matter what you're doing these days, I think everybody has to wear that hat to a certain extent in their job. And I suppose today's webinar is really to give you an overview of kind of what it's important to look at when we are measuring social media performance. And this is really a beginner level webinar. So if you're a professional marketer or you're working in a digital agency or you're a social media strategist, you're probably not going to learn anything mind-blowing from me today, but thanks for coming. But if you're new to this, if you're a little bit overwhelmed, if you're kind of doing a little bit of social media but not really tracking it and you don't really know where to start, then you've probably come to the right place today, and hopefully I can inspire you and inform you and give you some things to think about and chew on. So I suppose even the absolute Luddites amongst us know that, having some social media accounts and having lots of followers on them is good. And then if you post something and lots of people like it, that's good. So that's a basic level that kind of most people know. And you know what, that's not a bad start. So, but if you're actually going to go a little bit deeper with your social media and spend some money on paid campaigns and things like that, then you really do want to know that you're spending your money in the right place. So a lot of brands are spending a lot of their advertising budget on social media these days, and you don't just kind of want to be firing shots into the dark. You don't want to leave that sort of thing to chance. You want to know that you're putting your money in the right place. And I suppose the beauty of it is that it's very measurable and very trackable. Obviously, if you're working for a company and you have a boss that you have to report to, then you need to be able to justify what you're doing to your boss. You need to justify your existence, and also you need to justify it in terms of, negotiating more budget as well. So, if you want to get the best out of your social media, you need to get that budget to spend on it too. So it's really good to be able to look at the numbers, see what's working, and then be able to report on that as well. So there is a famous saying, and these are really words to live by in a lot of areas of life, but specifically in this, is if you can measure it, you can manage it. So you can run numbers, you can get graphs, you can get charts, you can analyze what it all means, and then you can come up with strategies to improve them. So the success of like every ad campaign is measurable in digital, and that's the beauty of it. So, where I used to work in magazines, for instance, we made our money two ways. We made our money by selling magazines. We made our money by selling advertising to advertisers who wanted to be in the magazines, but they could never really truly track exactly how many people saw their ad. I mean, we had a kind of a number that you would multiply by that would say, if one person buys this magazine, probably 2.4 or 3.2 people will also see it because they'll pass it on to their mum or their sister or whoever. So digital is so much more trackable than that, because everything, there's a path that you can follow. And also this content model with the digital, it's all around basically, if you have Instagram, we're all creating free content for Instagram, and Instagram are selling the advertising, so they're making the money out of it, and we're the chumps that are creating all this free content. Even if we're doing it for like a brand or a company, it's still creating free content for those social media channels. So if we're doing that, we really need to be making it work for us, because what are we getting out of it otherwise if we're spending all this time and thought and creativity on creating great content and then putting money behind it to create campaigns? So, there's a saying in the tech world that if a service is free, then you're the product. So if you've got a free account on a social media channel, they're definitely making money out of you. So you want to be making money out of it too. And the best way to do that is to make sure that you have a really focused strategy behind your digital content. And the best way to do that is to analyze it, because you can't just leave it to chance. So what are social media metrics? So essentially, let's recap on that. Metrics are measurements. That's what the word means. And if you have measurable, verifiable data, it can really give you clarity on the value of your activity. So that's what it is, and that's why you're doing it. So every investment you make on social media, you can track it. And you can see at the end of the day, has it made you any money back? Or, you know, even on a kind of higher level, has it increased the awareness of your brand? And then you can see pretty much how much, or exactly how much, in fact. So why do we do it? Why do we track social media? Well, we've kind of touched on that already there a little bit. So there's so much knowledge, there's so much data, and like, as they say, knowledge is power. So having all this data at your fingertips and ignoring it is, you know, it's not a smart thing to do. You know, it's all there, and it just takes a little bit of time to understand it. And it can seem very overwhelming when you go into like a Google Analytics dashboard, or you're looking at some of those social media monitoring tools, and you're just going like, oh my God, there's so much here, where do I even start? And when you look at all the formulas for tracking the different metrics, they're, you know, mathematical formulas, it can be very overwhelming as well. So I think really just kind of trying to keep a clear head about it and figure out what you want is important at the start. So first of all, audience building is, you know, you don't want to just be shouting into the void. So you do want to build your audience. So when you use your social media data to further build your audience, you're looking at what's working for them, what they like, when they're on it, and then help you kind of create more content based on that. Then you also want to track your social media data in terms of driving traffic to your site. Presumably you might be selling something on your site. Most people are moving to online commerce now because they've had to over the last year. So you really want to see what channels are driving that, and you can track back to see if there's an affiliate link or where it's come from. Then another one is connecting with influencers, and the word influencer can have a bit of a bad rep. And I mean, it's not just, you know, beauty bloggers that are influencers, or people on Instagram, you know, modeling clothes. I think the word is so much broader. So people who might really engage with your content, share your content, help increase the credibility of your brand or your personal brand, can be influencers. For instance, if you were a news journalist, you might want to kind of track and engage with people who are maybe, you know, international journalists, CNN correspondents, Washington Post, New York Times. So you might want to try and actually build your personal brand by engaging with people who are really credible in your industry. And those could be the influencers that maybe just kind of elevate you to their level if you're engaged in conversation with them. So then we're looking at serving our customers better as well. And this is just really like about listening on social media and looking at what people are saying, because so many small businesses these days are finding that people are using Instagram or Twitter as their customer complaints hotline. So instead of emailing about a problem or calling about a problem, people don't want to spend half an hour on the phone to Ryanair, 6 hours on hold to Ryanair about something. You know, they're going to put it on Twitter because they know if they embarrass the brand publicly, they're going to get their complaint resolved much quicker, much faster. Brands don't want that bad publicity out there on social media. So that's a really important one. And it's something that you do need to keep it's kind of anecdotal stuff if people are saying something, but you need to keep on top of that. You need to deal with it quickly. You need to diffuse it. You need to diffuse that negativity. You need to show that you're dealing with it well, with a positive response. And so that's really important in terms of serving customers, but it can also be serving customers in terms of listening to what they like and then giving them what they want, as well as dealing with problems. And then also finding new customers. So tracking your social media can help you see, you know, what is in the zeitgeist, what people are looking for, and just creating content that will draw more people in and kind of build that customer base. So there are lots of reasons to track it. I think just mainly the reason is that why have all this data, why have all this knowledge and not use it? You're really missing a trick if you're not. Even if you just pick a few things and do it on a very small level, it takes time. So do what you can, but definitely I would strongly recommend doing something. So if you're going to do it though, try and do a full cycle of it. So join it up and make sure that what you track, what you analyze, then feeds into your strategy. So don't kind of track it, analyze, and leave it. Track it, analyze, share it, and then build it into your strategy. So I'd say, first of all, it's not just having a sporadic look and go, oh, look, I got a few mentions, I got a few retweets. That's great. It's more than that. So first of all, you want to look at setting some really clear goals. So any kind of tracking or analyzing or reporting, it's good to have goals that you're kind of heading for, So just set some goals. Maybe it's, I want to grow my followers by 1,000 in the next 6 months, whatever it is. Set some kind of goal, because then you have something to aim for and kind of mark yourself and your performance off against. So think about what you want to focus on. Do you want to focus on growing your amount of followers? Do you want to focus on engagement? Do you want to focus on click through to get people coming to your site? So have that goal really clear in your mind, because the next thing you want to do is to match the metrics you're using to the goal, because there's no point in picking metrics that are measuring something else. There's so many formulas and so many metrics out there that you need to align the metrics you're going to use to the actual goals you have in mind. So then there's loads of tools you can use to help you kind of gather all this information. So, there's sites like kind of software like Mention for social listening. A few other ones like Quintly and Hootsuite can help you with analytics. Google Analytics is amazing. Bitly for link tracking. And then there's Clipfolio, kind of broader metrics tracking. So I don't really want to recommend anything in particular to anyone, because it really depends on what you're doing, what your business is, what your needs are. It's very much kind of how long is a piece of string. You need to go in, look at the kind of different software and things that are out there, look at your budget if you have a budget, and see what you can do yourself and what you need help with tracking as well, and how much you want to track. So you may or may not want to go down that road. For some people, maybe Google Analytics is enough, and the analytics within your social media channels. But it's really important to be regular about how you monitor things. So pick a cycle. Is it going to be weekly or is it going to be monthly? And I wouldn't do longer than that, really. You kind of do want to keep up, social media and digital moves so fast that you really don't want to leave it too long. So, you could be doing it daily if you have the resources to, hourly even. So the main thing is to be consistent. So keep tracking the same metrics over time. So do it every week, if every week is what you can do. And once you've picked the metrics that you're going to track, keep tracking those ones for a good considerable amount of time. And you may find that some of them aren't as relevant to you, so you want to change them, but do it for maybe 6 months or something before you swap out and maybe track another metric instead, if you're finding that what you're tracking isn't giving you what you want in terms of information. But be consistent so that you can see some patterns start to form, because really looking and seeing patterns is where you're going to get the most value out of your analysis. And then the other thing I would say is to do your monitoring, what you get, the information out of it, be open with it. So write reports on it, share it with your group, share it with your team, share it with your superiors if you have to share it to corporate C-suite. But, looking at it with people will show you what's working, and then you can ideate good content around the times, the days, the kind of content that's working, the channels that are working, what's going to work best for them. And creating fun and engaging social content, is something that it's good to do in a team, to work on ideas together, unless you're a complete comedy genius and have brilliant social media ideas. But then finally build it into your strategy. So complete the circle. So set the goals, measure the goals, analyze the goals, create the content, think about what people want, and then going forward, plan to do more of what's working in your next strategy. So let's take a little look at where these metrics kind of live in your marketing funnel. So just to think about that kind of bigger, broader picture, and maybe then we're going to look at a little selection that might work to cherry pick around what you could do to get kind of an oversight of that customer journey. So awareness metrics are all about your current and your potential audience. So these people are kind of aware of you, they know who you are, they've heard your name. And some examples of things, if you want to note these down, I won't give you the formulas because your minds will explode, but definitely you could look at formulas for things like brand awareness, audience growth rate, post reach, potential reach, and share of social voice. So they would be your awareness metrics. Then we come to engagement metrics, and this is all about how people are interacting with your content. So these are things like applause rate, average engagement rate, amplification rate, and virality rate. So then we have conversion metrics, which is how effective your social engagement is. So conversion is when an audience becomes a customer, essentially, or they go onto your website, or they click through, or they give you a call. So this is really measuring how effective your social engagement is. It's great that people are engaging. There's a bit of a buzz around your brand. People are talking to you, but are they actually going to become a customer? So you want them to click through, you want them to visit your website, you want them to make a purchase. So in this kind of metrics, we can look at things like conversion rate, click-through rate, bounce rate, unfortunately, is when people kind of click through but go very quickly away. Cost per click, which is an important one, cost per 1,000 impressions, CPM, social media conversion rate, and conversation rate. Conversation rate is one I like. It's the ratio of comments per post to the number of overall followers you have. So as opposed to kind of tracking comments without any context to it, it's like if you only have 200 followers, but you're getting 20 comments on every post that you post, then your 200 followers are super engaged. They're really interested in what you're saying and you're having great conversations with them. So the higher the conversation rate, actually, the more engaged your followers are. So that's a really cute one. I like conversations are good. So the other final one then is consumer one. So that's how the active customers think and feel about your brand. And these are really less data driven and more kind of anecdotal. And these are probably ones that you actually need to actively do a bit more of the work to gather this information. So we're talking about things like customer testimonials, customer reviews. And then you've also got things like your CSAT score, which is your rating of customer satisfaction. So this is if you do a survey, and you could do like a survey on your Twitter, or send it out by email or on your MailChimp, and it would be, how would you describe your overall satisfaction with this product or service? And then you've also got another one people love to talk about is the Net Promoter Score, the NPS. And that would be how likely it is that you would recommend our company or service or product to a friend. So for those, you actually have to do a bit of work. You have to ask the question, create the survey, and then create the ratings on those and gather that information. But people love Net Promoter Score, especially because that is indicating both the customer satisfaction, you're getting your CSAT, but you're also getting an idea of who your potential future customers are, or is there potential future sales? Because if people are recommending you, word of mouth is really, really powerful. So that's a great one to gauge. If people really, really like your product, they're going to tell people about it. And it's good to know that, because if they're like, yeah, I like it, but I don't think I'd recommend it, then, you need to do something about that. So social listening is kind of the basic level of media monitoring. And you'll hear it talked about a lot. And I probably even mentioned it already here today. But this is basically what's like listening to what's being said about your brand. So you're listening across all of the channels. And media monitoring used to just be agencies who would look through like every newspaper, but now media monitoring is across the entire internet. So it's really a bigger thing than it used to be. And you want to see what's being said about your brand, because it's important to know what people are saying about you. Are they happy with you or your service? Are they complaining? Are they excited about a new launch? But you also want to see what they're saying about your competitors, and just kind of in terms of the industry in general as well, see what kind of the market's like. So here's a kind of a cherry-picked bunch of metrics. You could say, I'm going to select these ones, and these are going to be the ones I'm focused on. So, your mentions is really important. Obviously, that's like people are talking about you, so that's good. Then your reach is, how many people have seen the content that you're distributing. And then the sentiment is the reaction to it. So that's, is it positive? So you really want to be looking at every mention and going, right, let's deep dive into these. Are they neutral mentions? Are they positive mentions? Or are they negative mentions? And then you want to act to diffuse any negativity and also try and build more positive relationships with your audience. And it's really important to do this, especially if you've a new launch, to kind of get around the sentiment around the launch and see the levels of excitement, or if there are any problems with it if you've launched a product as well. Follower influence then is about how influential your followers are. And this can be really important in terms of, if someone retweets you, are they retweeting it to, have they 6 followers or have they 20,000 followers? So looking at your followers' influence is quite good, because you can kind of try and engage more and maybe connect with followers who are in your audience that can give your brand more credibility. So there are various different things where you can actually check out their social authority score. So they measure the influence of people or brands on social media, and you get ranked based on your analytics. So things like clout with a K, Moz or follower wonk, I think is another one. So they would all rank the influence of people. So if you see people are following you and you're thinking about maybe connecting with them in terms of maybe some co-branded content or something like that, then you could check out their influencer score and see if you want to actually do something with them, because it can help you build your brand. So, and the last one there is share of voice, which I like as well. It's how many people are mentioning your brand compared to your competitors. So there's a formula for that. And I think that's good because, it's like that Oscar Wilde quote, the only thing worse than being talked about is not being talked about. So hopefully those mentions compared to your competitors are positive, but anything that's getting your brand name out there, I suppose, is good. So share of voice compared to your competitors is a nice little metric as well. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about some of the awareness ones, because I think this is so foundational. There's no point shouting into the void. You have to have a volume of followers. You need to grow that numbers, to grow the awareness. So then your content is going to have a greater impact. So yeah, the 3 absolute basics, and I just want to drum this in case it needs to be drummed in, but the 3 absolute basics are your mentions, your brand mentions, and your hashtags. So just to explain what they are exactly is that, an @ mention is obvious. You've been tagged with an @ symbol, so it will come up in, say, on your mentions in Twitter. Brand mention is when you haven't necessarily been tagged, but monitoring services will still pick this up if your brand has been mentioned in a tweet, or sometimes even if you're searching topics on Twitter, you will see that something is in bold, but it hasn't necessarily been tagged. But if it's trending that day, some of those tweets will still show up the name of the thing that's trending in bold, even if it's not tagged or hashtagged. And then hashtags, obviously there's a specific hashtag. And so, you mightn't have brand mentions, but if you were running a campaign, then you might have a hashtag for that campaign, or for a competition as well. And that's a really good way to get a lot of activity happening, is to run a competition. So you might be searching those hashtags to see who's entered the competition. Have you had a lot of entries? What's the engagement like on that? The other thing then is reach. So reach, can be tricky these days because so many of the channels have kind of changed their algorithms, and you're getting things popping up in your feed very randomly. You're not necessarily seeing everything that you follow in your feed. You're maybe seeing the things you interact with the most. You're not really sure what their algorithm is. You don't know how they're doing that. And sometimes, you're like, oh, I haven't seen anything from so-and-so in a while. It used to be great pals with them, and now I see nothing on their Instagram. But maybe it's not because they aren't posting, but it's just because the algorithm has kind of pushed them away down your feed. So you really need to think about, and I suppose this is pushing people and brands towards running paid promotions, because if you want to get seen, you want to be sure you get seen, and you want to beat the algorithm, and kind of the only way to do it is to pay for it. So otherwise you can post away, but it might be quite scattergun in terms of, are people definitely seeing this? So the only way to know for sure that your demographic that you want to see it is going to see it is to put some dollar behind it. So the 3 types of reach anyway is organic. So this is the one which we're struggling with really, because the algorithms are kind of messing with that. So Organic is the actual, just the number of people who saw your post or your tweet in their feed. And because of the algorithms changing, we're not always sure, are people seeing it? Now, your viral reach is if something is going viral. So that means loads of people have seen it, but not only have they seen it, they've shared it and retweeted it or emailed it on or posted it somewhere else. So viral reach is how many people have seen your reach as a result of social sharing. So if your content is good or funny or topical, lots of people will share it, and then your viral reach will explode. Then your paid reach is then the one that is kind of the dependable, I guess, now. So that's the number of people who can see your content through a promoted social post. And, you know, that's the one that is, if you're going to do it, you need to track it, because you really need to see that that money is being spent wisely. Obviously the dream is to go viral. And I know there are actually agencies I came across one recently that is run by a team of comedy writers. So they're trying to target brands and say, look, we're going to create really funny stuff for you, so that, you know, if you want to use humorous social media posts, they have a much higher chance of going viral or being retweeted or creating engagement, because people will enjoy them and want to share them more. And so that's kind of another trend that's coming through in the industry. So then onto engagement. Some simple metrics to look at here. Really obvious ones are your likes, your shares, your mentions, your replies. And the reason, oh, sorry, I'm sorry, there is a little small dog under my desk and he just barked at someone walking by the window there. But yeah, sorry, back to your engagement. So, where was I? Yeah, it's just important in terms of what's resonating with your audience. So this is why we want to keep looking at those, even though they seem like very simple compared to some of the more complicated formulas that are out there. It's still important to track those. So see what your audience enjoys, see what is getting them talking, see what is getting them talking to you, like engaging and talking back to you. Then another thing I think is worth keeping an eye on is this followers to following ratio as well. And I suppose if you've set up a new social channel, obviously the temptation is to go and follow a lot of people and hope they'll follow you back. And then I think people get very insulted if you follow them, but then unfollow them because they haven't followed you back. So really, you know, try and focus on gaining new followers rather than like following 3,000 people and then you've got 5 followers. That's not a good look. And also, if you just have a lot more people you are following than are following you, it kind of seems like, well, why are you following all those people? Why don't you get out there and engage with them and see if they'll follow you back then, because they think that you're saying something worthwhile. And if you're not saying something worthwhile, then that is a big red flag to go and work on making your content more engaging, and really to engage more as well. You know, don't be silent and lurking on social media. Get into conversations with people who are influential, with contemporaries, and connect with people on it, so that will kind of organically get people to follow you back, get people to see what you're saying, go and go, oh, I'll check out their site, and go that way to you. And like, you want to be kind of making content topical, giving it a hook, making, you know, something that will provoke discussion. So like doing things like asking a question, running some polls, these can all be things that will help with that. And then another thing just to mention is to really look at, you know, the graphs, especially in your analytics, because it's a very visual, easy way to see, you know, what days and what times people are on, and what days and what times people are engaging. So if you want to run paid content, you really want people to see it and engage with it. If you have a call to action, if you have a click through, then put it at the times that are working for your audience. Put it at the times that your audience are there, because you want them to be there to click through to make that paid content work and have the most impact it can have. So then there's a few things around kind of the top of the pops. So these are kind of, you know, where your followers are in terms of numbers is one thing, but then where they are in terms of engagement this is really a lot about engagement. And I think one thing to think about is, when we're talking about the top engaging channels, like you could have thousands and thousands of followers on Facebook, but they're followers that you kind of grew maybe 5 or 10 years ago when people were on Facebook. And while Facebook still might be where most of your followers are in terms of your top engaging channel, maybe you'll look at your Instagram, or maybe you have a TikTok, and you'll find that people are engaging on those. Now, you might not have as many followers on those. You might have 1,000 Instagram followers, but maybe Facebook is dead, and then everyone's DMing you using Instagram as your customer service, making their inquiries and complaints on Instagram, commenting on your posts, like sharing your stories. So if you've got a really engaged channel, and a channel that has more followers but is dead, then you need to think about, well, is the one that is a lot of engagement, is that where I want to actually concentrate, or is it the one with the bigger numbers but nothing happening? So that's another thing to factor in terms of kind of analyzing what is most useful to me. So where that engagement is really important. And then you can kind of, help you plan your content, help you plan your strategy, and like look at that data on social referral as well. So we go into the top referring channels. So we go into our Google Analytics, we'll see on our site where most of our traffic is coming in from. Or if you are, for instance, doing an event and you're selling tickets on Eventbrite, you can see if you've run social campaigns, you'll be able to see that. Sorry, I hope everyone can hear me, because I just got a little message that my connection wasn't great there, but I'm just going to repeat there. So I'm going to loop back to the start of the top referring channels. So that's really helping us understand where customers are coming into our website from. And so you can also see, I was just saying, if you're running an event, you can see on Eventbrite where people have actually referred from to buy their tickets, if you ran social campaigns as well, if they came from any of those. So the top referring channels are going to understand where our customers are really coming in from, and then, where you're getting that click through from, and where you should spend your money in terms of people are going to buy when they come in from here, but people don't really tend to buy when they come in from there, or they just don't come, full stop. So then your top conversion channels, like these are all quite similar, but a little bit different. So your top conversion channels are where you're actually getting the most sales from. And then obviously if one channel is converting more than other channels, if your people if your people are kind of coming in from TikTok, but they're not buying, but then they're getting their mom who's on Facebook to come in and buy stuff for them, then might be your top converting channel in that sense. So maybe if it's something that, people can get awareness, like kids get awareness of your brand from a TikTok, but then they don't have the purchasing power. It might be that, an ad pops up on their mum's Facebook, and then their mum comes in and buys it for them. So that might be your top converting channel. So that's really where you want to post your top content, really, on your top converting channel, though, because you want to put your really strong calls to action there, because that is where people are actually coming and spending money from. So that's the one you want to be looking at in terms of that. And then your total social media conversions are really just pulling everything together from every channel and just seeing really how much money have we made out of our social media, and how much return on investment have we got, and which, rather than breaking it down by which channel at all. So it's kind of, if you're reporting to corporate and they're like, are we wasting our time doing social media here? They don't really care about how many followers each channel has. They're just going, is there money coming in from this? Is it worth spending money on? So you can just show them a total social media conversions and say, yeah, social media works if it does, or no, it doesn't if it doesn't. So really the bottom line, I suppose, again, if you are reporting upwards on this, is that you need to be proving that you're making revenue from social channels, or really, really generating awareness. So it is really important at the end of the day to set clear goals and then assign monetary values to things. So, you can even do this in Google Analytics. You can do it for product sales, but you can also do it for subscriptions. So even if it's just getting subscriptions who are signing up to your newsletter or your blog, because you can kind of assign a monetary value to those, and then kind of show and report a value on actually how many subscribers you have, and then how many customers are coming from that. So ultimately, I think, unless you really, really love spending all your time on social media, and you really want to make sure that your time on it is worth it. And especially if you're a small business owner, there's always a million things pulling for your attention in every which way. So although this seems like a lot to get your head around, and it is, I really would recommend spending a bit of time with it. If there were any of the metrics that kind of spoke to you from what I was saying today, look up the formula for them, look up where you can see them, or what maybe software or tools can help you to measure them if you want something that will kind of do more of that for you. And then select even just a couple to get started that you really want to focus on, and maybe that you can track on a weekly basis. And then if you have other people to share that information with, do report on it so that you're talking about it, you're seeing what's working, and you're creating ideas that will help you plan and feed into your social media strategy. So thank you very much for listening today, everyone. And I'm here for questions. If you have any, I hope I can answer them for you.